Hello, world, and welcome to episode 7 of the Genius podcast. I'm your host, Joshua the Genius, along here with my beautiful co-host, Sarah and Mitchell.
Hey, guys.
And today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, along with AI bias and automation. Okay? And so before we jump in, we're just going to start with a quick definition of what artificial intelligence actually is.
Okay, so let's get started with what is artificial intelligence, because I think when people hear artificial intelligence, they think like a sci-fi movie, the computers are like taking over and like getting rid of the humans, all kind of crazy stuff. But though, people are drawing those conclusions, when I explain what it is, it'll make sense. So artificial intelligence, this is according to IBM. Artificial intelligence leverages computers and machines to mimic the problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of the human mind. At its simplest form, artificial intelligence is a field which combines computer science and robust data sets to enable problem-solving. It also encompasses subfields of machine learning and deep learning, which are frequently mentioned in conjunction with artificial intelligence. These disciplines are comprised of AI, which is artificial intelligence algorithms, which seek to create expert systems which make predictions or classifications based on the input data. So when we start bringing in terms like machine learning and deep learning, which is a version of machine learning is the method by which artificial intelligence learns how it gets better. Because I think if we're setting the benchmark at getting computers to be able to make human decisions, we have to train them on these are certain sets of inputs, and this is how that relates to this specific output. So trying to get the computer to make those links. So AI is basically a neural network of inputs, outputs, and getting the computer to understand what happens in between to get from A to B. So with machine learning, you have two different levels of machine learning, just regular machine learning and then deep learning. So regular machine learning, you have where we're putting in certain, data sets, and there's the distinction is really human involvement. So with standard machine learning, you have humans involved in the process.
A lot of historical data.
Historical data, so when we say that, we're talking about like texts, like various translations of the Bible, or based on how a specific company is trying to utilize the data. We'll explore some AI applications. So deep learning is where the computer is just chewing up massive amounts of raw data. You don't have that same human component there to do the QC. So the computer is just chewing through mass amounts of data by itself.
And this helps with scalability.
Correct. Because the reason why we're even bringing up AI is because we're trying to bring forth a level of automation. So to increase efficiency of certain tasks, we're trying to remove certain jobs, and this is a big issue with AI. A lot of the media was kind of attacking AI from the perspective of the job loss that's going to come at the hands of computers basically taking the place of humans, of people, because it's just able to do the work faster.
Correct. And we'll get to that conversation here in just a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's start looking at different applications of artificial intelligence in the marketplace.
Siri.
I was just about to say speech recognition is first. I think this is one that a lot of people are familiar with. So for example, features like speech to text. So if you're sending a text message on your iPhone and you're talking to it and it's converting to text, so you could send the text message, that's an application of artificial intelligence.
You also
Siri.
see that in the music app now with lyrics, right? With now audio tracks and artificial intelligence putting the actual text on screen where people can now sing along to the song.
Correct.
right? And now you can just talk to Siri without pushing buttons, right? It's now able to pick up ambient noise in the background, right, to be able to hear you. So
For your Siri or Alexa or Cortana or Watson, all of these are powered by artificial intelligence, are trying to decipher the input that you put in, which would be your speech, and it's trying to come back with a resolution. So if you're asking a question, you're doing a translation to another language, all of these are applications of artificial intelligence. Customer service. So we're seeing companies use where you go on a website and they have like a little messaging box, and it'll pop up where somebody's like talking to you. That's AI. Those are messenger bots.
and some people, really believe that they're talking to real people, right? And
That tells you the level of machine learning that takes place to make these computers able to give back a human response.
And that's the aim of in the customer service industry, is to have that human experience without having a human there, right? We'll talk a little bit about what that automation process looks like and how it affects the amount of jobs that humans are able to apply for if they have an automated service that handles that. Before you had large call centers where people could handle and field human interaction to kind of manage customer service. So it's interesting to see the comparison between human quality assurance when it comes to customer service as opposed to artificial intelligence and how they handle it. And we'll talk about that here in just a moment.
Okay. Another application of AI is computer vision. So when we start talking about self-driving cars,
Tesla.
we're getting into the field of computer vision. So this AI technology enables computers and systems to derive meaningful information from digital images, videos, and other visual inputs. And based on those inputs, they can take action. So this technology, as we mentioned, is being employed in self-driving cars. It's being used for radiology imaging in the healthcare industry. And it's also being utilized on social media sites for tagging photos. So when you see Facebook does like a recommendation, like, hey, are you in this photo? That's utilizing this AI technology.
There's also, so when we talk about facial recognition and artificial intelligence, we talked about before in a previous podcast, I believe that was either episode.
About privacy?
About privacy.
Oh, yeah.
When we talked about how certain cultures in certain countries are implementing a kind of like social currency where they're rating you based on how you interact in society.
So you have like a social score.
Right. And so that artificial intelligence, right, is monitoring your profile, and it may give feedback to the people that own
if you want
the
to buy
structure.
a house, if you're trying to get into an apartment, you're trying to buy a car, get a loan,
that
factors into
that factors in, and then even more so than that, trying to predict the future of crimes.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There's a movie. I can't remember the movie right now. Please, somebody tag me and let me know this movie. But the movie was about basically people being arrested for future crimes, right? Artificial intelligence was able to see into the future based upon who
plan
you've been
probabilities based on the information that it's given.
And seeing the bias in that. We'll talk about that here in a moment as well. Yeah.
Let's see. Other applications for AI, recommendation engines. Using past consumption behavior data, AI algorithms can help to discover data trends that can be used to develop more efficient cross-selling strategies. So now we're talking about ads. This is used to make relevant add-on recommendations to customers during the checkout process for online retailers.
And so, that speaks to more about privacy, right? About websites collecting cookies, tracking you across websites with other metrics and other identifiers.
Because last episode we were definitely talking about those, what was it called? ADFA? IDFA?
IDFAs, yes. Yes, identifying
Identifier
advertising.
for advertisement?
Yes, thank you. So yes, so being this artificial intelligence sharing that information and building the profile on you, right, and then presenting you advertisements that it believes might be suitable for you. But who's to say how intelligent this AI is
To
to
be able to
discern,
decipher.
yeah, to discern what's right for you, right? Does it have all the information about you, or does it just have a small subset of data that it's pulling from? Or is there human interaction involved, like Sarah was talking about with top level machine learning? Is there human interaction involved where,
To quality check these
right,
things.
that might have their own inherent biases with their understanding?
Because that lends to like AI bias developing.
Mm-hmm.
So with this advertising, you start seeing issues of AI bias cropping up when advertisers are given the opportunity to select for specific demographics like race,
Mm-hmm.
gender, um, even so much as region. Because if I'm gonna tailor an ad for somebody who I'm saying is African American, female, and in a densely populated area, you create opportunities for some crazy stuff to start happening.
There were, and I think that this is one of the topics we're going to get to here, but the examples of seeing this bias, and that's definitely one of them. Facebook had where they were able to, I believe this was in 2014, 2015, that Facebook allowed you to target advertisement based upon gender, race, and religion. And certain companies were only tailoring certain jobs to certain demographics, which they felt best suited this position, not on qualifications,
Tragic.
but based on what the artificial intelligence algorithm told them was best, right?
White male.
And so if
Christian.
they, yes, so if they look to past historical data, right? If they look at, okay, Amazon is another example. They look at past historical data and say, okay, hey, who's best for a software engineer? Well, the past 10 years, we've had 90% of the people that are successful in this role be white males between the age of, let's say, 23 to 45.
That generates a bias.
And then that will generate the model from which the artificial intelligence will now learn from. And so it'll say, hey,
This is an example where context is completely lost on the machine, because the machine doesn't understand that we live in a society where women were excluded from roles in technology at the time frame that they're pulling their historical data from. So a computer can't say, oh well, these are the people who are qualified, but that's based on a skewed data set. So you see with the case with Amazon, when we start talking about how companies have employed AI in their system, so this was HR. Amazon was using AI to screen resumes for jobs, again, training on a flawed data set. And the result of that, the AI bias that resulted from that, was that women and people of color were being screened out. Their resumes were being screened out because the model had determined that in order to be a successful employee in the business, you had to fit these specific data points that it saw in its historical data.
and just before we move on, I want to talk about the two ways that biases occur before we really get into the conversation.
The meat and
of it.
potatoes.
Yeah. Before, right. So there's two ways. One is just the inherent understanding of the programmer and how they're programming the data set, and whatever inherent biases that they may have.
Themselves have that they may not even realize that they have.
Correct. And then pulling, as we just talked about, pulling historical data sets, right? As we talked about with Amazon, they pulled the last 10 years and said who was successful at this role. Okay, there was a certain demographic, a certain a profile of person that fit what we wanted.
Success.
Right? The model of success, and it excluded a subset of demographics that were as qualified as this model that they generated.
Just excluded
right?
because of social biases.
Correct. And so now we're getting into the responsibilities, right, of tech companies and how they regard AI bias, right?
Okay.
And so, as Sarah was talking about before, artificial intelligence doesn't understand context. It doesn't understand nuance at this moment, right?
It's just looking at the numbers.
Correct. We're not at the point to where artificial intelligence is as intelligent as humans. Okay, if you've seen movies like I, Robot, right? I forget the main character robot's name, but the main character in that movie was kind of the representation of the next level of artificial intelligence, right? A system.
Empathy, where it understands emotion.
It understands emotion, it understands nuance, it understands context within our human society. Because what's contextual to us in our human society may not be in context to another society on another planet somewhere, right? So being able to understand what we relate to as humans and understand in context in our society is what we're teaching to artificial intelligence, right? We have to teach it. The best thing about a computer is that it can understand and it can perform a task efficiently as many times as you need it to, right? And what we're stepping into is now computers becoming more intelligent, but that's only based upon how we are educating the actual computer. It's still based on us.
So an example of how this can go awry. So Google Translate is powered by artificial intelligence. Excuse me. And the issue that particular model is facing or has been facing and they're trying to resolve is that certain languages that are gender neutral, when we start talking about how you form your language informs how you think. So when you start comparing different languages, people of those languages frame their thoughts in specific ways based on the tools of their language. But a computer can't understand that nuance.
Mm-hmm.
So for languages where they're gender neutral, like Turkish, for example, Google Translate was having issues with, for example, if I say a doctor, a nurse, when it translated that to English from Turkish, it would say he is a doctor, she is a nurse. So when we look at the data sets that these systems are pulling from, a large portion of those comparative texts are the Bible. The Bible has been printed in many different languages. What a computer can't understand is how the societies of the time where the Bible was being compiled, those societies had certain views about jobs that were for women and jobs that were for men. So that all of that is lost on a computer, So we talk about the importance of when companies are trying to find ways to fold in artificial intelligence to make their products more efficient. There has to be a human component, in my opinion, to balance and provide that context so that when we talk about the responsibility of the company to their users, we have to be very aware of the license we're giving these companies to just blame it on computers. Like, you guys have the responsibility to QC your data and to basically, there needs to be a check and a balance. Like, you can't just let the computers make decisions and be like, oh, well, this is what the computer said, so
right.
This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, so using artificial intelligence is not taking the ownership, right, from the company, right? The company is using artificial intelligence to make their whatever process more efficient, but it doesn't take the onus, right, from the CEO, right? Two ways. When you're working with artificial intelligence, you need to have a diverse team, right? It can't just be one group of demographic working on your artificial intelligence, because if you do, that's
The
inherently
biases
creating.
start showing up.
It starts show. It's just how we operate as humans.
You need
right?
perspective, a diversity of perspective.
Exactly. And while we are a very big supporter on the surface of diversity, we
Application doesn't
inherently,
always
yeah,
show.
we inherently right now are dealing with a lot of issues with accepting diversity in our culture, which is why we see the bias in artificial intelligence. You can't deny that, right?
Poisonous fruit from a poisonous tree.
Right. The computer, like I said before, is only understanding what you teach it. It's only understanding what you teach it. So if we see the bias in the output of the computer, then we know that there's something going on from the input. And where is that coming from? From us. So if companies are starting to implement artificial intelligence or create it or start to use it in mass to their customers, right? You need to have a diverse group of programmers, of
Developing that project.
of team leads that understand that there is a bias, and we need to have, which leads me to my second point
about fighting against that.
Which leads me to my second point, that there needs to be a open space to have these conversations, to be able to bring up to the CEO to say, hey, these are biases that we're seeing in the output of this data. We need to sit down and have a conversation about it, because it's skewing our numbers and it's hurting our culture, because
and the user experience.
It's hurting the user experience. It's hurting our overall brand and company, because we are not choosing the best candidates, and we are discriminating potentially against certain customers, and that's something that needs to be addressed. Certain CEOs may not want to hear that, because they may see high profits coming from this, right? But just
all
because
you see is the numbers. When you strip away the humans behind the numbers, you just lose it.
We are a capitalistic society, right? We are a capitalistic society. So we do look at the bottom line, and if the bottom line, that number's going up, right? If that number's going up based upon our implementation of AI, we may not want to hear that we have to invest into more money to get this thing right? We may have to add 2 or 3 more people onto the team to get a better perspective. We may have to put the product through 3 or 4 more months of testing before we put it out based upon certain feedback, right? There's an investment that has to come, one, not only financially, but ethically, right? And so and so you'll see the companies that are analyzing, right? And that are looking at both sides of the coin. And you'll see the companies that may not be doing it the best. Sarah, you had a point?
I didn't. I was really enjoying that explanation.
I'm sorry you were saying. So, yeah, I think that artificial intelligence is one of the coolest things that I've been able to experience in my lifetime. Right? I was listening to a podcast earlier, and they were talking about, we're in a time where the things that we saw on the Jetsons is a real thing.
It's happening.
I can remember, God rest his
little
soul.
Video call.
Yeah. God rest his soul. I was right before FaceTime came out. My older brother was so excited to make a FaceTime call, because it was the coolest thing. He's 5 years older than me. And so he was born in 83.
He had a beeper.
He was born in 83, right? He was born in 83. And so the things and the toys that he was playing with, right, in the cartoons and things, that it was super futuristic, but it wasn't realistic. Yeah. Now those things are realistic.
Technology bridges that gap.
Now being able to make phone calls from your watch, right? Like, that was unheard of 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Right? And now the creation of artificial intelligence, for me to be able to, as we were talking about with Siri and Alexa, to be able to automate the entire home based upon voice recognition. When we were in Paris, I was able to use Google Translate, put it up to a sign, and
read the signs or read the menu.
And read the artificial intelligence looked through the text, translated it for me into English, and then augmented reality
the
placed
text.
that right on top of the sign in English text so that I could read it. I don't have to walk around with this huge translation book and spend 10 minutes just trying to understand
You
one
can
sentence.
use your phone to talk to people. Like, you talk in English, it'll translate to French. They talk in French, and it'll translate to English. So you talk about bridging gaps, technology, yes, the automation that comes with artificial intelligence presents mass job loss. But I think we also need to acknowledge
talk
that
about that job loss.
there's a large growth in the computer science industry. Like, we need more people of color who are filling these roles, working on these programs to provide context and to help us to combat bias.
We need more women.
We need more women in that work environment as well.
Mm-hmm. And so you brought up job loss. I want to get to this article from...
let's bring up some stats.
Yeah, from teamstage.io. Teamstage.io. Again, we'll put all these links in the description text.
Notes, yeah.
Yep. And so, they have a few statistics here I want to read out to you. 2.25 million industrial robots are currently in use around the world. 2.25 million. 1.7 million manufacturing jobs have been lost to automation so far. Up to 20 million manufacturing jobs could be lost to robots by 2030. 25% of jobs in the U.S. are at high risk of automation. 1.6 manufacturing jobs are lost for every new robot. 1.6 manufacturing jobs are lost for every one new robot. And last one is automation will create 133 million jobs by 2020. Okay?
Because people need to be able to fix these machines, first of all.
Right. And so what those stats show is...
It's a shift.
Right? Right? So you go into fast food restaurants. Let's start in restaurants, right? In fast food. You go in, and now, when I was a kid, you used to go in, and behind the counter, there were 4 or 5 people that were ready to take your order. 4 to 5. Now, there might be 1, and the other stations are self-serve.
True.
How many jobs does that take from kids who need to get a part-time job at 16? Right? Or for somebody that needs to have a second job at night and
to supplement their income.
And work a night shift. Right? The machine, right, that little kiosk takes away that job. Because as a business owner, if I can pay a one flat fee and pay maybe, let's say I pay $1,000 for this kiosk, right? That might be 1 month's salary for this person that I have to employ for 12 months.
And that computer can just keep going. And
So,
it's not going to complain. It's not going
to call out.
It's not going to get sick.
It's not going to say, hey, I know I submitted PTO and you denied it, but I'm still gone.
But I'm out.
Right? It's going to sit there and do its job. So back to being a capitalistic society, what do we look at? We look at the bottom line. So as a business owner, I want to make sure that I'm making enough profit, right, with the least amount of expenses as possible. Automation and artificial intelligence provides that to businesses. We talk about retail. When I was a kid, right? This was late 80s, early 90s. You used to go into the retail store, 10, 15 employees on the floor, ready to help you. Now, maybe 5. And they'll direct you to the website for other things. Oh, go check out our website. Oh, we only may have 1 or 2 here in the store, but if you want this,
Online
you want that.
shopping is the wave.
Go get it. And then let's talk about the pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic definitely exacerbated that as well.
So even and this just hit me, right? A lot of tech companies, multi-million-dollar companies, are closing their corporate offices because computers allow their workers to work from home through Zoom, teleconferencing, Wi-Fi, sending out all their material via email, right? We transfer Google Drive.
When they
right?
said this didn't need to be a meeting, this could have been an email. All of that energy.
Right. So now, but let's look at the jobs that are lost when you do that. What about the janitors that worked in that office?
The maintenance staff.
Right? Maintenance staff. What about maybe some
Or
of the power
custodial staff.
companies, power companies that were getting paid off of that building, right, to fund certain things, right? It's a give and take. We look at manufacturing. Look at manufacturing, where a lot of engineers were working at plants, working on these cars. Now, you walk into a manufacturing plant, I would say 70% of the work that's done in there is done by robots.
Yeah, and you just have human
Welding.
overseers.
Yeah, you just have, right. And so that's a great point. That's a great point. The overseer. Now,
Just to make sure everything's, moving the way it should.
there is, I'm going to, Sarah, if you could look it up in the teamstage.io, it's about high school and college graduates.
Okay.
High school and college graduates. The amount of risk of automation to careers that require a college degree is, I believe, at about 20 to 25%. And that's low in comparison to jobs in the manufacturing industry that is upwards of 60 to 70%. Okay? So there's a huge fear and a high level of anxiety of people that are in high school, students that are in high school right now, trying to figure out how they're going to make their way in the world, given the results of the pandemic, given how the job industry is just shifting right now. And we look at if artificial intelligence is taking most of the low skill jobs, right? The ones that don't require a certification or don't require a higher level of degree, right? Those are the jobs that are
At
taking
risk.
that
More
are
at risk.
high risk. So it behooves you. It's in your best interest to get a college degree or get some type of professional certification. Okay, we had conversations.
I found
Yes.
the stat.
Yes.
So jobs that require a bachelor's degree have an average automation potential of 24%.
24%.
According to Robots Taking Job Statistics, positions that require a bachelor's degree face the lowest risk of being automated. Job loss due to automation is least likely among higher educated workers.
Correct. So we talk about that overseer at the manufacturing plant for Ford, for Tesla, right?
Master mechanic, just there for if the machines break down.
Mm-hmm. So now he'll get paid, right? He'll get paid, but eventually his job might be at risk because I might be able to put a better robot in that job that can give me better metrics and that can work 24/7 instead of you having
The more
to
that
give you all
AI
time.
is able to make those nuanced discernments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, back to the college degree, students are being told that yes, you need to go to college and get this college degree. But with automation decreasing the amount of jobs in certain spaces, where are we getting these degrees? And what degree is going to best benefit us in
At
this
that
new
time, we got to be
in this
thinking
new
about
industry?
these educational, when we talk about building curriculums as a university or even as a high school, like we have to think about what is the world going to be like 30 years from now? What is the world going to be like 50 years from now?
So I'll give you what the world will be in 2022. Automation will create another 133 million jobs. Okay, I just talked maybe for the past 10 minutes about artificial intelligence taking jobs from people, right? We have a statistic here that says that it will create 133 million jobs by 2020. This is from Forbes, right? The statistic is from Forbes. And so what are those 133 million jobs? What are they? 90% of them are in computer science, in some type of computer
Some
science
kind
field.
of technical
Right?
application.
Computer programmer, quality assurance technician, repair technician, maintenance technician,
Engineer.
software engineer, hardware engineer. All of these high-level jobs, right? Even as a technician,
skilled.
highly skilled jobs, excuse me, these are the jobs that are being created, right? If artificial intelligence breaks down, somebody has to fix it, right? The hardware breaks down, someone has to fix it. Somebody has to create these robots, has to actually build them, right? Someone has to program them, right? We're talking about artificial intelligence and the AI bias and these teams of quality assurance, right? Somebody has to be in the marketing team to market these different things
These
to other people.
products.
There's a lot of opportunity that is being opened based on the growth of artificial intelligence, but it's shifting
The job market.
exactly, right? This is not the
it's
job
it's
market.
kind of laying waste to low skill jobs, which is going to have an effect on low income households, because it's going to open up a market for more highly educated people, but those aren't necessarily going to be the people that are coming from low income households.
And
So we're going to see some economic
I was just about to say that,
ramifications to
yes.
this as well.
That this in the next 10 years, right, you're going to see a huge economic shift because our society has made us very lazy. It's made us
Sedentary.
very,
I would
very,
say sedentary. I wouldn't so much
Why?
say lazy as I would say sedentary.
Explain.
Because people are like, I wouldn't say in the sunken place, but they're comfortable and they're complacent. Not
guess
so much
comfort
that they're
might
lazy,
be
but there's
better.
no need to move. Sedentary.
And so that complacency is going to
Have
hurt
a
you.
cost.
It's going to have a huge cost, right? Your reliance on, hey, I can just uh, uh, go to the mall and get a job here, or I can go to this restaurant and get a job here. Waiters, right? Right. A lot of people's first jobs was being a waiter at a restaurant, right? I just had somebody, a jewelry store owner here, stop me, who owns one of the other restaurants here in St. Thomas. He stopped me the other day and was like, hey, I want to talk about getting some iPads and putting those at tables so people can just order them
From the
and
table.
from
Removing
from-
wait staff.
Yeah, order them.
Wait
and we
staff
just have a couple
is
people.
also a job that's at high risk of being
Yeah.
replaced by AI.
He just wanted a couple people to bring him out, but he wanted to decrease his wait staff, right? Yeah, I'll pay the couple $1,000s now, but these are going to last me 3 or 4
That's
years.
wages for like a couple months.
Right? And then so now where do people get their introductory jobs?
It moves that benchmark for what is an intro level job.
Yeah, exactly. So now the intro level jobs are intros to computer programming. Right? Being a junior developer somewhere, being an apprentice, right, to an engineer, being an apprentice to a software developer. Right?
It looks
Being-
like society in that regard is shifting more towards the creators and those who have a fix, like a repair
Mhm.
skill,
Mhm.
as opposed to people who passively consume.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so you're going to have to get more active because it's a fight. It's a fight. Our capitalistic society,
Only the fittest will survive.
only the fittest will survive, but we are founded upon efficiency at any cost. Efficiency at any cost. So artificial intelligence, while we have just discussed a lot of the inherent biases that are in it, there are a lot of it. What's what I'm looking for? A lot of advantages
There's potential.
and
There's a lot
mass
of potential there.
to artificial intelligence, right? And so where do you sit right now? Where do you see your life in 5 to 10 years? Right? We just talked about some of these industries that are being affected, right? That are being affected. Is what you're going to go study in school? Is that potential high risk for you, or is it low risk, based upon
Want to talk
how
about probability of success?
right? How ingrained artificial intelligence is in your role. There's another stat that says home care facility and healthcare,
Childcare, you mean?
child
what you're talking
care and home care for the elderly.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Right? Those jobs are going to increase because it's difficult to
You
teach.
can't really
Right? It's difficult to teach
the
a
robot.
robot how
Empathy.
how to deal with the child, the nuances of what crying means and things. Right now, in 10, 15 years, that might change.
Quantum computers might come to shake
When
it up,
when
man.
did when did Google say that they
Oh
were going to have a
yeah,
quantum
so
computer?
this week in the news, actually, Google announced that it was 8 years out. 20 where are we? 2021 now.
Mm-hmm.
By 2030, they would have a quantum computer ready for the commercial market.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting. They're working with quantum computers right now at high levels with the government and certain tech companies. Right, that's
It's
a
in
thing.
the lab environment
Um,
for the most part.
yeah. But you'll be able to get your hands on it at a high cost. But you'll be able to get
Of
your hands on it
course.
in about 10 years. And then
When
we'll
I say
see.
for the commercial market, I don't think people are gonna be out there like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna replace my computer with a quantum computer." I don't mean when I say commercial, I mean like accessible to like corporations to utilize for powering their AI potentially.
Bet I'm getting one. Give me one. So, uh, the
Hashtag
outlook.
Qubits.
The outlook of artificial intelligence is positive.
Net positive. There are some drawbacks, but net positive.
Yeah. It's net positive right now, and what will skew this to being negative is just our own human
Human
flaws.
nature
Yeah, and human
and
nature.
us not doing the due diligence to check that. Can we actually close, because we have about 10 minutes left, can we actually close with a few tools that companies can use to reduce AI bias?
Yeah, sure.
So this again from the IBM website. So we have AI Fairness 360. IBM released an open source library to detect and mitigate biases in unsupervised learning algorithms that has currently 34 contributors as of September 2020 on GitHub. The library is called AI Fairness 360. It enables AI programmers to, one, test biases in models and data sets with a comprehensive set of metrics, and two, mitigate bias with the help of 12 packed algorithms such as learning fair representations, reject option classification, disparate impact remover. Let's see. AI.
The open scale.
OpenScale, that's the second one. So IBM Watson's OpenScale performs bias checking and mitigation in real time when AI is making its decisions. And then the third one is Google's What If tool. So using the What If tool, you can test performance in hypothetical situations, analyze the importance of different data features, and visualize model behavior across multiple models and in some subsets of input data.
Perfect.
And we're going to put all these resources in the show notes as well, so you guys can access them.
For sure. And so, with artificial intelligence, if you're in it, if you're working on it, have a diverse team, right? Figure out who you're
how you
targeting.
can best inform your software.
Yeah. What team can you put together that is best suited to create the AI and also give you feedback with a high level perspective and a diverse perspective? And if that means investing a little more resources into that side of the business, you will see more positive outcomes in the long run.
You won't have to pay so much for cleanup on the back end.
Correct. Secondly, right, make sure that you have an open space to have conversations.
A safe space for people to give feedback.
How safe is the culture around your company, right? Do you allow your employees, your teams to communicate feedback to you effectively, right? Where they're not, where they don't have the anxiety of potentially having repercussions, right, and consequences inflicted upon them for giving you their feedback. Okay, that's something for you as a company to really think about.
To develop your company culture in a more positive way.
1000%. And when it comes to automation, I tell my students all the time. Especially the ones that are in middle school, early high school. Get as much experience as you can. Sign up for as many internships as you can. attached to as summer jobs, mentorships in certain fields, so that when you get to college, you can have
exactly what you want.
a better
More or less.
understanding, right,
Yeah.
of
A
where
more
you want
developed.
to put your time into, right? And regardless of how progressive artificial intelligence is, you can still be successful in that field, along with and in companionship with artificial intelligence. But you'll need to increase your understanding of computer science, and that's just where we are in America. We look
In the
over
world,
well we
man.
well we look over in China, and we look over and see that a lot of skills like microsoldering or skills of computer programming, it's taught in elementary, early middle school, to where when they get to high school, they can submit jobs over here in the States starting at $50,000, $60,000, because those are the jobs right now that are least filled but have a high value of salary. It's because we're not teaching our American populace
Oh
these
yeah.
these
Math
skill
and
sets.
science, we are scoring the lowest as a country in math and science.
And math and science are what power artificial intelligence, and that's what you're fighting, right? So if you want to be you want to be successful
Competitive.
and you want to be competitive, you have to increase your understanding of computer science.
I think part of the problem with our, as far as we're talking about America, I think part of the problem with America falling behind in math and science is that our country is putting more money into building prisons than it is into building educational
That's a whole different
systems.
podcast episode.
I know we have like a couple minutes left, but I'm just gonna hit you with a slugger.
Jeez. So, yeah, that would be my advice for this pod. Increase your understanding of computer science. Artificial intelligence isn't going anywhere. Increase your understanding of computer science, whether it be in software or hardware. Pick a side and get to learn it. Okay? If Sarah, if you don't have anything else, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to us today. I do want to let you guys know that we are now syndicated through the Millie Up radio station. We're going to put their link in the show notes as well. But they're a radio station based out of North Carolina, I believe. And we're going to be streaming on their
But they're
radio.
international radio.
Yeah, they're based out of North Carolina, but international radio. And we're going to be streaming on their radio station Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Okay, so if you have anybody in North Carolina or those internationally that want to catch us on that service, we're on there as well. Syndicated Wednesdays at 7 p.m. All right. And if you're here in St. Thomas, if you need any help with any of your Apple products, if they need a little tender love and care, give us a call at 340-227-3821, or come down and visit us right off of Radisgata, right here in Main Street, same street that Old Crazy Cow used to be on. Okay. You can also visit our website, Joshua the Genius, that's Genius with a J.com. You can reach us there if you have any feedback for us. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.
We'll see you next week, or in the next 2 weeks.
Peace.